So good to have
Okay.
you here, anyway.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for inviting me on. It's an honor.
Yeah, so I did a short video a little before we came live, and I was telling my audience that I think I met you sometime in April. That's online when I
Yes.
reviewed yeah when I reviewed one of your pieces.
Yes. That
Yes,
was
the one
wonderful
you
too. Yeah.
the, the one you wrote during the COVID season. I think I remember
Yeah.
that, and then
Yep.
how all of that now brought us to this point. So good to have
Yeah.
you on live.
Thank
It's
you.
been one I've been looking up to for quite a long while.
Uh, Thank you so much. Likewise.
So how has it been at your end?
It's been fine. It's a little rainy here in Dallas, Texas, where I live. So we're just, if you hear thunder in the background or anything like that, then now you'll know why. So,
That's really okay. Okay, I think let's begin in full. My name is Eneye Lawal. For the many persons who will be joining the live, I would do well to bring us up to speed with what we are doing here. So my name is Eneye Lawal. I am a writer. I am a reviewer. I am a teacher. So I work in a girls' school and I teach literature in it. So I have a background in English and literary studies. So I've been doing this for quite a while, but I've been doing it basically offline, right? And then I thought, why not bring it online and then share what I have, my way of seeing life, my way of seeing poetry, my way of seeing literature with the world, and that's what brought us to this point. Nick, can you do us the favor of introducing yourself to the audience so we'll meet you?
yeah, I'm Neel Trivedi. I'm here in America, in Texas, and see, I'm a writer, I'm a journalist, and also a mental health podcaster. I write a lot of poetry, as you know, we'll get into regarding mental health, and I also write short stories and all that stuff. I've been published before in lots of magazines and books and things like that. And yeah, I just because I have myself clinical depression and generalized anxiety disorder. I've just made it my mission to spread awareness of mental health and just tell everybody that, hey, it's normal, guys. There's nothing abnormal about it. Everybody struggles in life, and I just want to normalize that for everybody.
Yeah, that's cool. So, like you said, everybody has their time with mental health issues, but the problem, like we've seen, is how it has become a taboo in the culture. So that I don't know how it is in America, but over here in Africa, that's West Africa, it's a taboo subject, right? So, I
Right.
had Tolu Akinyemi. I'm sure you're familiar with him, Tolu A.
Yeah.
Akinyemi. Yeah, so I had him on a live like this sometime last year, and then we were going through his work. Everybody don't colo mental, and you'd see in every stanza, every line that taboo,
Right.
how it's been denigrated. You don't talk about this. You just manage your thing, and you see the problem that has caused over time,
Yeah.
right? So we'll be getting that more. So we'll be looking at in this life. We're looking at confronting mental health issues with poetry. So, what's your foundation
Right.
in poetry, Neil?
I I started writing at a very young age because I was born very sick, so I couldn't go out and play with other kids. I had severe asthma, which kind of limited my physical activities when I was young. So kids in the neighborhood would go out and play ball, basketball, whatever. I couldn't do it because it would trigger an asthma attack. So I was naturally drawn to reading and writing and those kind of things more, so you can sit and relax rather than, run or something like that. So I started writing when I was very young, but when I felt the mental health issues coming on me in my, younger days and all that, that's when I started channeling it all into my poetry. It became an expression of how I feel because, and it's interesting, you mentioned that about African culture. It's very similar, even though I was born and brought up in America. So you can see I'm Indian. And in India, it's a very similar situation. It's being talked about a little bit more now than it used to be, but it's still taboo in a lot of places in India and a lot of depending on where you're from and what type of family you're in. But it's hard even in India. So India and Africa, they share that. they share that struggle of how do we express when talking about mental health is still very difficult. And like you said, in many, many places, still taboo. So I can definitely relate to that, even though, I'm here in America where it's a little bit better.
Yeah, I think the American culture has opened up the conversation, and so it's normal for someone to say mental health and they get help. But over here, when you say things like mental health, you are pushed away. Like what's that? So that's
Yeah.
yeah, I think you have better Michael in the call. So better, glad to have you on this call. So okay, you began
Oh.
poetry as the way you the kind of upbringing you had, the growing up issues you had, poetry helped you. But do you have any like foundation in the art? Like you studied it in school? Because I did well to go through your collections time and time again, and I am blown. I think we'll go into
Oh,
that,
thank
your
you.
style of imagery, how you put words together. It's a particular stanza that I had to read over and over again. So I would call you in to just give me your thoughts about that. But do you have any training in writing?
Not specifically, no, actually. I was more just naturally drawn to it. I mean, here we have stuff like English class and all that, and you have to write papers, and you have literature class in college and all that. So I did a little bit of that, but not specifically. It's not as if I, took a course or anything like learned how to write. It just naturally came as soon as I was at the age where I could read and write. It just started naturally coming to me. I guess I was always a little bit creatively inclined. And then I did later on in college, I majored in journalism, so I'm sure that only added to it. As a journalist, that definitely helps. But other than that, not really any special training. It was just organic, just thoughts came to me and I started putting them down on paper.
Mm. So okay, in my literature classes I hold there, I usually tell my kids that they are born writers and they are trained writers, and whatever part of the spectrum you fall into, just write. So just put ideas in. Okay, so
Right.
let's get into it. How did poetry help you in your journey with mental health issues?
Yeah, it helps me find like almost a process of catharsis in it because as people who struggle with mental health issues will know, it's not like we can, anytime we're depressed or we have an anxiety attack, we can't say run out on the street and tell everybody vocal, like, verbally, we can't say, I have anxiety, help me. That's not like, people will look at you like you're crazy. So what I do is I channel that feeling into writing, then all of a sudden it's not so crazy anymore through literature. Then people are like, oh, is this how you feel? Is this how you like get it? So it's a process of catharsis and one more tool for me just to express myself when I can't otherwise in normal ways. Like I can't scream and shout at the top of my lungs, I'm depressed. So I put that in poetry, and then that, if that poetry happens to connect with other readers, then they understand me. And in turn, I understand where they're coming from.
So let's begin with If Only. That's the first poem in the collection. So
Yeah.
If Only, and I discovered something. It's so this is if I summarize it. It's the role of man's institution in standing against his peace. So we've built these institutions that come against
Yeah.
um, our finding peace, and this is in religion. So I see you in your piece talking about you trying to get this done, but religion comes in the way. You trying to get this done, relationship comes in the way. You trying to get this done, and then life comes in the way. So we built this complex
Yeah.
structure that's made the mental health journey a tough one. So how do you speak to that?
Yeah, it was basically like you said, we've built up certain perceptions of what relationships or religious experiences should be in society, and we have all these perceived rules of like, oh, well, what does relationship mean? Just husband and wife or spouses, just a romantic couple? Can two friends have the same type of relationship without being romantic? Same thing with religion. If for anybody who is a believer out there of God or some sort of higher power, it's like, what's the right way? Do we have to go to a church or a temple or some sort of religious place to connect with a higher power, or can we just do it on our mind? So it's my take on, everybody is telling me all these rules of what relationships should be, and it's like, I just want to express the way I feel in my own way. Why do these rules get in the way? It just makes it more difficult for me to, like, I want to believe in God. I want to trust it. I want to pray. I want to, develop a relationship to where he'll look out for me. But you're telling me all these rules that, no, you have to go to this religious place or any holy place in any religion, or you have to pray this way, then only that's the correct way. So that's my way of saying, like, who determined that in the first place? If I, in my heart of heart, have feelings for somebody or a higher power or anything else, then isn't that genuine without me having to express in the ways that people have said, no, you have to express it that way? So it's kind of going against the norm, I would say, and telling everybody that, hey, you have your own ways of doing things, of expressing yourself, of loving somebody or religion or whatever it is, and be proud of that. You don't have to do what society tells you. No, you can only do it this way. That's sort of the idea there.
Yes, and you captured it beautifully. Not
Thank
only
you.
so, when I look at a poem, I'm more blown by the message, because that is one side of it, but also the showing. So you did so well in layering the thoughts in such that it passed across the message, succinctly, right? So, and then I got to Bastard Stepchild, and there is this stanza that I kept that wore this smile on my face. So this is the stanza. It says, "Icicles cascade down your back, and it feels like it's a smoldering of your deepest desires, because you are used to cold shoulders burning your spirits alive." Cold shoulders burning your spirits alive, for God's sakes, and leaving you to sweat in a coffin before you are officially dead. So that's mind blowing. How people can happen to us and just change the trajectory of our lives. So we can tie mental health issues to people. We cannot extrapolate people from what happens within us. So no matter how we try to be that person who, from within and then out, we somehow get feedbacks from people that can affect the way we see ourselves and the way we relate to the world. I think that's what you do in Bastard Stepchild. And that stanza I just read out. Yes. Maybe you'd speak to that.
Yeah, you're absolutely bang on. It's really about perception, and again, most people, I'm trying to, again, like, go against the norm. This is what people say is a good thing, right? It's like, this is what people say, nice and sunny day. Oh, everybody wants a nice and sunny day, right? We don't want cold, ice, snow, things like that, right? Everybody wants it. But what happens if you personally have associated warmth with something bad? If your experience, something happened in your life where it left you traumatized, and I don't mean literally a sunny day, I mean anything to do with words like warmth, love, if it left you brokenhearted, then you won't feel the same way. You might look at it differently. So it's exactly what you said. It's these institutions which people have put within the people and society, and it's trying to break through and say, guys, I don't feel that way. I see everybody happy around me because it's nice and sunny, but have you ever thought that my experience might be different than yours? Even if it looks nice, everything is good. It's about breaking that barrier, and exactly like you said, you describe it better than I did. Actually, you articulated the meaning of it so much better than I did. I'm so impressed.
I so much enjoyed the poem, and that particular stanza I read was just it. So the other things you said, but I just love the way imageries work. Maybe because I'm a poet at heart, so
Yeah.
it sat so well
Yeah.
with me. Okay, so I was another poem I would like us to discuss about is why the hate?
Yes. So that's the
Yes,
universal
yes.
topic, right? I think everybody in the world, no matter what country you're from, what's your skin color, religion, caste, creed, none of that. Everybody has been through hate because we look or sound or act differently than the other person. And people are prejudiced and biased and, to many much degree, racial tensions or sexist because of your gender or whatever. And it's my way of saying, guys, think about it. Does religion actually make you help your heart breathe? The blood that flows within our bodies is the same as you and I. You're from a different culture, a different country. We look very different, but we're built the same way. We're both human beings. Blood, what helps you live, oxygen and blood in your heartbeat, is the same with me. So why are we hating each other for this outer appearance that we all have? We may look different, but
Mm.
inside we're all the same. We're all human. We all get hurt by certain things, or we all get overjoyed by seeing certain things. So, like, we're all inside, from the inside, I feel we're all the same, but yet this world has made it all about outer experience and how we look and what's our skin color and what's our religion, which, I think everybody in the world has at some point or another faced that bias or racial prejudice, you know.
Yeah, so you captured that beautifully in why we did. So you talked about religion, you talked about communication, So we are judged by, but where do you think all of that comes from? We at the point where we are all children, we there was no hatred. So there's this photo flying around social media of this white child, with black children, and then there was no
Yeah.
racism. So they were just vibing. If you look at that pic, if they should, you know, do that same picture in say 20 years time, it would be a very different discussion. What we'll find from that would not be what we're seeing when they are
Yeah.
kids. So that we are all born without prejudices. We are all born seeing ourselves as one race under the heavens. But things happen to us along our
Yeah.
journeys that makes us see ourselves as different. So we judge ourselves by the way we speak, by the way we look, by the religion we adhere to. So how do you think that happens? That makes us look at ourselves and say, "I'm better than you, and I hate you."
Yeah, I think a lot of factors, but at least to start with, I guess it would be the environment that we're grown up in. Because, like you said, like as babies, we come into this world without any prejudice, none whatsoever. We don't know. We're just babies. We're happy to be held and cuddled by anybody, you know. Uh, it's always starts with the environment. What are your parents like? Are they tolerant people who are teaching you to, hey, even though, let's say, yes, we're all Christian here in this family, but explore other worlds, are they giving you that type of teaching? Or are they just saying, hey, look, son or daughter, when you grow up, you're going to face different people and different religions. Don't listen to them. We are the right ones. So, what are they teaching you? What type of environment have you grown up in? And I think that's a large part of it.
So the family unit plays a huge role, if I get you right,
Yeah.
on how we evolve as humans. So Isaac Ebemose just joined the live. So welcome, Isaac. We are having a discussion on mental health issues, so confronting mental health issues with poetry. And I've been with Neel Trivedi for some time now, going through his poems and his ideology with regards to mental health and how we can get better at it. So the family unit plays a very important
Yeah.
role. In amongst the agents of socialization, the family unit is very key. So if we get it right at that point, it's easy for the child to now become so. Okay, parents who would listen to this record, they should be very careful with how they bring their children. The things they sell to them can affect how that child sees the next person, and hatred has its spillover effect.
Yeah.
Can you speak to that? I'm sure in your journey through life, I'm sure you've seen hatred and what that has done to those around that sphere. So, please speak to that.
Yeah, I mean, as everybody can see, I'm not white, even though born and raised in America, I come from an Indian family. So I've seen, like, especially after 9/11 in history, where pretty much every brown skinned person was looked at with that kind of like, oh my God, stay away from. So I've faced that, but luckily, because I grew up in an environment. I was born in Connecticut, which is in the Northeast here, which is very close to New York, where I was lucky enough to where in places like that, in the bigger cities in America, you get to see people of all color. You see all types of immigrants from China, Japan, Mexico, Germany, whatever, all of Europe. So I think to some degree I was shielded from that. I was lucky enough to be in environments where if you see people of all skin and color and all cultures from the very beginning, then it's much easier. So I grew up with good values, and of course, my parents being Indian, they also, they were immigrants themselves. So obviously, they're not going to put hatred in my mind and say, don't be friends with the immigrants. Of course, they're not going to. They're immigrants themselves, right? So I was lucky enough I didn't face it too much. Here and there, I've seen in Texas now. Texas is a pretty conservative state, shall we say. So here and there, every once in a while, you can see. I've heard like some ex-military man once gave me the middle finger out of nowhere. I was just walking on the street, and he just looked at me and said, "Get out of my country." And I'm like, "Dude, I was born here. I'm an American citizen. What are you talking about?" But he probably had some issues, and he was a war veteran and mental health issues going on of his own, which he probably hadn't taken care of. So I've faced a little bit of that, and I'm sure there are people who have faced a lot more than I have, and my heart goes out to them. But for the most part, I think I've been fortunate enough personally to be shielded from most of that stuff, though I do agree it's rampant everywhere, and my heart goes out to all of those who have faced it at any time.
I really liked the way you responded to that experience. Someone else would have said that that's how they are, but you nixed it down to that corpse experience. It's possible that he's going through something mental health related, and that's where outbursts come. Maybe in a different scenario, in a different place, a different time, the couple wouldn't have exploded the way he did, So I think your parents deserve enough kudos for the way you were raised to know live life the way you do. Yeah,
Thank you.
On this life, I'm saying thank you, Neel. Mom. Thank you, Neel, Dad. Thank you for bringing you afforded him. So there are many pieces here that I enjoyed, and there's this one titled "Casket to the Universe." So this is the way I summarize the thoughts you shared there. It is the power of love in making life worth living.
Yes.
So that you showed us this persona. So I tried to, in my reading of poetry, extrapolate the writer from the poem. So it's possible the writer is not the persona. The writer is wearing the persona to, talk about life. So you raise a number of issues. A body that's been breathing for 30 plus years is only now infused with life, with your acknowledgements,
Yeah.
And then you come down and down and down. You ended the thought with, all I perceive is that you complete me. Without you, I am a casket. With you, I am a universe. And that's mind-blowing.
Thank you.
Let me leave separate the persona from the poet. Is this a personal experience?
It is just not the way somebody would think. It's not from one particular person. It's not like I fell in love and then I wrote with one person. Yeah, I can tell you a brief history if you want of where those thoughts stem from. Is for many many years, I just felt like I have no friends, and because of my conditions and all that, I didn't know how to socialize properly. I didn't know, like, how do I get out there and meet people? I didn't know. And then about I want to say 3 4 years ago, through the online mental health community, I started meeting people like you and other people as well who started supporting me and said, I can relate to you. I can relate to this. And that just had a mind blowing effect. Oh my God, I actually have people who are listening to what I'm saying. That's an incredible feeling, and are complimenting my poetry and are praising me and saying they understand. And so that was like my dedication to all these people I've met online through the mental health community, that, hey guys, now that you guys are encouraging me and not judging me because of my conditions, I feel so free. I can talk to you guys the way I want to what's really going on in my heart, and I don't have to worry, what will they think of me? Are they going to be judgmental? Such as yourself, I can tell you anything. I can say, hey, I have clinical depression, I have clinical anxiety, and you won't judge. You understand where I'm coming from. So that's where the joy of that was. Just, oh, this is such a relief to have people understand me truly of what I'm going through. And once that experience happened to me, it really was like I'm becoming complete now. I'm no longer just a casket who's about to be buried 6 feet under. I'm rising, like I'm being alive now, and I'm embracing myself because of the support around me that I'm getting. And that's kind of a little bit of where those kind of thoughts stemmed from.
Yeah, yeah. So I see how that's good. And if you put that poem, that caskets to universe, side by side, none the wiser, you'd see how they complement.
Yes.
So none the wiser shows this persona, right, who is invincible, right? Nobody gets to see what is happening within, versus casket to universe, when love now comes and life,
Yeah.
becomes worth living.
Yes.
So I think when we give love, we are doing a lot to
Yes. Yeah.
the next person. So I think one of the reasons why we've had a lot of mental health issues that has prolonged, leading to loss of life, death, it's that hoarding of love. People hoard love,
Yeah.
right? And there's also a place of being, I think, so you talked about the communities that helped you see you, communities that saw you, communities that appreciated you, and that helped you evolve. Somehow poetry had a role in that.
Oh yeah.
So you began to write about how you felt.
Yeah.
You began to show that part of you, and that now unlocked the love in people, and you come to that place of being loved,
Yeah.
right? So there's something subtle I find here. So it's proper, so like poetry for us, it's how we get to show what is happening within.
Yeah.
For some other person, it can be music, it can be art, it can be painting, whatever it is. So let's say how to be better, or how to feel love, is by exposing vulnerability.
Yes.
Do you
100%.
do you keep to that?
Yeah, absolutely. Because
Okay.
nobody's a mind reader or a psychic here. If you don't express yourself, how will anybody know? The issue just comes, like we talked about a little bit earlier, is just when and where to expose our feelings and our vulnerabilities properly so that they understand. So obviously, if you come from a culture where, like you said, like mental health is taboo, it's much more difficult to do. So then we find avenues like poetry and art and other creative endeavors. But yes, I agree completely that in order to receive the love that we all seek, we have to show our vulnerabilities too. We can't just, be happy all the time. Like, we have to show that, because that's what builds the relationship, at least in mental health communities particularly. Other people can relate to you when you start expressing that vulnerability. They can say, oh, I was feeling that way too, but I couldn't say it because of my culture forbid me to, or not forbid, but made it very difficult for me to express that. But now I hear you. And that's how, yes, you slowly find the love and the relationships and friendships that makes it a little bit easier to move forward in life and to have a reason, like you said, to live and to grow and to be motivated.
Yes, I think I see IQ. I don't know if you know IQ. IQ is this American who does poetry shows. He gets invited to these conferences where he performs spoken word poetry.
Yeah.
I think I get the name right. IQ. I think it's IQ. So I think what he does is he holds these poetry meetings, poetry sessions with these big execs that help them on fall.
Mm-hmm.
And you see how poetry helps in bonding,
Yeah.
So I've seen that in his videos. So after the experience of showing them how to be vulnerable, I think we should do more with young people, showing them the arts, showing them because somehow poetry is a cryptic language.
Yeah.
Yep. Not everybody would see a poem and understand the poem. So it takes somebody deep,
Yeah. Yeah.
So it helps you see.
Yes.
Yeah, so it helps you see your audience. So I think we should do more of educating people on how to use poetry to express their vulnerability.
Yeah.
When they do that, not everybody will catch what it is they're expressing. Only those who can relate and empathize with them will do so.
Exactly. Well said. Yeah.
Yeah. So I think we should do more of that, sensitizing people, going out there. So we write poetry, whatever it is. I think it should also be done in therapy sessions. Write it down, paint the imageries, they see it, and then they would relate. But exposing vulnerability in a healthy way helps you attract love, and that love is very powerful.
It really is.
For both of us who have mental health phase, love has helped us, understand our worth. That beyond how we see ourselves, we are more valuable.
Yes.
And I think that's very important.
Yeah. And the term that I usually use on publicly and on my podcast and other things is, I call it being human. Because when we see social media posts, we see everybody is happy or with 1,000 filters of everybody on a beach or everybody in these magnificent places, these bloggers and all that. They say, today I went in, and we're seeing a highlight reel. It's not real most of the time. Some people are, but when everybody is not happy all the time, and that's what sometimes we see in social media posts. People will say, look, I took a trip to Paris, look, I'm near the Eiffel Tower, or look, I'm here, and we start looking at social media like, man, how do all these people always have time to experience the good things in life? We never get to, and so it's exactly to express that vulnerability in a safe way. I like that you said safe and healthy way, because that's really crucial to understand. But yes, to express that more definitely creates a bonding with others that, takes us forward. I completely agree with that, 100%.
Yeah, so there's another, okay, so a friend of mine just joined. This is Olob Creativity, so thanks for joining. Yes, and I've been having a conversation with Neel Trivedi for quite over some time now, and it's been very insightful, very thoughtful. We've been looking at the theme confronting mental health with poetry, and this is my second interview, about mental health, and I think mental health should be talked about a lot, and then make people see that it's not a taboo topic. It's life. So Sadiq,
it's
welcome
life.
to the life. Good to
Yeah.
have you here.
Yeah. It's life.
You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
we don't talk about money. I think we should talk about mental health as much because most people have those problems, and when they know how to get out of it, I think we've done so much in empowerment. Yes. So there's this piece again. We'll be looking at someone somewhere, right?
Yeah.
Right. So we
Yeah.
in someone somewhere, it's something similar to what you did in Casket to Universe.
Yeah.
Right. In someone somewhere, how I
Yeah.
summarize the whole piece is let people in.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yes.
that
Yeah.
that's the way I would put it. To let people in. But I think we should be careful with what we serve the universe.
Yeah.
So how do you respond to that, Neil?
Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely correct. It is about letting in, and also it's all. Also, I was trying to like throw in the theme of you never know where you will meet those people to form connections with. It could be online like this, or it could be somewhere out there. You go to a party, you might meet a group of people who share similar experiences as. It's also about trying to say you never know where these connections will come from. So don't like underestimate the power of anything. A lot of my friends today who understand in my mental health struggles are all online, rather than in person. Most of the friendships that I've had in the last few years have been cultivated online.
When we say vulnerability is important, and I am sure you agree with me. It's good to be vulnerable with wherever we are.
Yeah.
But I think so. This is what I usually counsel. I say be vulnerable to a point you can manage.
Yes. That is a very good point. Yes, that is a very good point.
Yeah. So there are things about you put out that you cannot take back in. So I would say if you not be comfortable with hearing people talk about it, don't put it out. Do you agree?
Yes, absolutely.
Social media really doesn't forgive, So I would say yes, let people in, but censor what you say. And for us poets, I think poetry is that healthy place, to let it all out, because not everybody will. I've written poems that people just go. So I like my poems in such a way where it doesn't say everything it shows. You have to be patient to read and then get the message. So poetry is that place where you can put it all in, and only those who it's meant for will find it. Has that been your experience so far?
Totally, like exponentially. That's correct. It's those who are similar to me all get it.
It helps, to get all. So let people in, I think one of the best gifts we can give to non-poets is the gift of poetry. So how have you helped, how have you helped? Do you help people? Do you have workshops you organize, conferences, seminars where you teach poetry? Do you do that?
So I don't do it like in a formal, official way, but there have been people who have reached out to me like privately in DMs and all that, saying, "How do I get started? I don't know how to write." And I'm like, everybody knows how to write. I think it's just to write in that format can be, like you said, born writers versus learning. So the advice I always give is, you know what? Don't worry about format at first. If you want to be a writer, just write. If you have one thought, write it down. If you have 50 thoughts, write them down. Just write whatever comes to your mind. Don't worry about rhyming patterns. Don't worry about like a form of poetry, and then go from there. It all starts with writing.
So that's wonderful. It's whatever thought comes. Many persons get so stuck in, on writing the perfect piece that they never write the actual piece. So they want it so perfect that they don't get to even write. So it helped that, whatever thoughts you have on your head, just put it in paper. It may not be silly metaphor of oxymoron. It may not just jump at you at first, but like William Wordsworth would say, poetry is man meaning to man. So if you mean to the next person, pass across a message. So whether it has simile, metaphor, that's poetry, So I think that helps, and we should be open, like you said, to those ones. I was getting, there's a time I did this 100 days poetry challenge. So I was writing poems every day for 100 days because, like you, poetry helps me heal. I found poetry much into my college days as a way to express my feelings uncensored and not get judged. So I began this project of writing poetry, and people started reaching out to me. How do they write poetry? How can they be better? So I put together a book, so I titled it Companion to Writing Poetry, and that helps, So if somebody asks for my assistance, I just give them the material and then go through this. So that helps me from having to go over explaining. So just take the book and the book will fix you up. So I think we should do our best to educate people on how to write, because writing and sharing that part of you, helps to attract love, let people in. There's someone somewhere who needs to be in your life, for your life to be whole. So why not open your space, be that kind of a person? But one of the things I discovered with mental health is mental health thrives in isolation. It tries to isolate its hosts, and then it keeps you from expressing yourself, keeps you from reaching out. So it takes you away from the world and keeps you in your world, How do you think, as somebody who has had to, grapple with this and, gotten help, how do you manage that part of you that tells you, don't say it, keep that in? How did you feel at those times versus when you exposed yourself and got help? How was the change?
Yeah, it's a massive change, and let me tell you, I think it's important for all the people watching this to know, I was for many years the exact same way. It's like, I cannot share this, I just can't, this is nobody will understand me, nobody will be able to, see my point of view. I was very scared at first, It's only when I saw a few others online do something similar is when I started to share my poetry. At first I was very reluctant to do so. But then I saw, once I did it, and the responses I started getting is what kept me going into it more and more. So I would just say that to anybody, I know you're scared. I get that feeling of not showing your vulnerable side, especially because, as we discussed earlier, social media can be ruthless at times, can be very, very judgmental. But if you find the right people, it's very much worth it eventually.
And so it pays off to be expressive with your mental health issues because it helps you find love.
Yeah.
And I think love is that ingredient that just solves the problem. When there's love, you find a way to be yourself again. Everybody becomes better in a loving environment. And that's what being vulnerable does. And I think that's what it has done. So there's this poem again, it's titled The Equality of Time. So we're talking about confronting mental health with poetry. And so in the equality of time, I love what you do or what you did in the piece, right? So this is the way I summarize the thought. It is the power of personal affirmation, So what's the place of personal affirmation in dealing with mental health issues, and how did you use that in your journey?
I tried to remember that, if grief and sadness and frustration can come at you totally unexpectedly. You may never know when it's going to hit you. Affirmations, if we're saying, I'm frustrated, I'm sad, I'm angry, I'm scared, we can also say, I'll be okay. You know, I'll be fine. Yes, this hurts right now, but at some point, this pain will go a little bit down, if not completely away. Keeping your mind open to, if we feel one way about bad emotions, we can feel the same way about happy emotions too. You know, they're just emotions. They're all come unexpected.
Yeah, so affirmation has its power, and I noticed in your piece, so there are lines in the poem where you be like, you've outlived your stay here pain, you must end your.
Yeah.
I. So I think it should be one of the things in the toolkit of anybody grappling with mental health issues. You know, to have those daily affirmations. You know, did you have that while you were in place? Do you have like a board or like sticky note, like, you know, where you just say those words? Do you have that?
Yeah, I do a little bit here and there. I put little post-it notes on my laptop and all that. But more so, I have it in my artwork is what I try to do. It's like not necessarily all in words, but there'll be a positive, inspiring picture. Like I do a lot of light coming into darkness. So whenever I look at that picture of mine, I think can come in anytime. You just never know. So yeah, I do have a few of them. I do have affirmations to my poetry and other things, but more I focus on artwork because artwork I can actually hang on my wall without it seeming strange, you know, and look at that and be inspired by that. So.
You know, many persons shy away from affirmations because it makes them look weird. But I think okay, so the last life we held just broke without warning. So I'm trying to bring Neil back up so we could have. Okay, so I think Neil is coming back up. Welcome back, Neil. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, welcome. I don't know what happened. I guess it was network or we reached the time lapse.
Yeah.
That made us end at that point. Because I know we had not concluded our thoughts, and then that happened. And it's good to have you back.
Oh,
So we're talking
thanks.
about the quality of time and talking about the power of affirmations. And we said that for you said art does it for you, right? So when you see that piece, and anybody who scrolls through your profile will see a lot of that. You know, those artworks that depict life, that depict hope, that depict, you know, that it doesn't end the way it looks. You know, there is hope at the end of the tunnel and all of that. So anybody grappling with with mental health issues can choose any that will work. So it can be that they look at an artwork and that helps, and then affirmations. So maybe you should speak to that because you were on that before the transmission broke.
Yeah, it's like art and affirmations, right? They go hand in hand. You can either see it visually or you can read the words and, let those words get inside you and feel them out. So that's what I do for a lot of my friends now when they're down or I want to give them a gift. Many times I've gifted my various pieces of artwork depicting that. And just to help them kind of say, hey, this is a gentle reminder that anytime you're feeling down or feeling vulnerable or feeling scared, try to look at this pic and let's not make a mistake about this. I'm not saying it'll cure anything, but might just help you see a different perspective. So, that's the point of it. But yes, I agree. Affirmations or positive artwork with hope has the potential to go a long way, indeed.
Yeah. So do what works for you. But I think our conclusion would be on the matter is get help,
Yes,
and
that's
help.
important.
Okay, so respond to this for those grappling with, because I haven't been a person who has had my own fair share of mental health issues. And it's not as if we've gotten to that point where we are impervious, we've built a strong shield that we cannot relapse into depression. And there are those bouts that comes somewhere in the journey, but we've built a kind of mechanisms like writing about it, having a community around ourselves that show us love so much that we do not give into what is happening in our soulish realm, right? So do you think there is hope in the battle with mental health issues?
Yes, definitely. There is always hope, and I think you and we're living proof of that, right? There was a time where I thought, I can't get beyond this. I'll never be able to survive this. It's just that bad. I can't get out of my own head, these negative thoughts. It's never going to work. But ultimately it did, if you have the right resources, of course. And I think that's where a lot of the problem stems, is if you're coming from a place or a culture or any place in the world, not just one country, where resources are limited, then I can understand how it would be difficult for some people to, find those resources and get help. Like here they have free hotlines or free chat lines where you can chat with a therapist or whatever, or get therapy very easily. Whereas I know in many countries, like many continents like Africa, even in India, it can be a little bit more difficult to do that. It's not that simple. So I get that. I get all the barriers and the limitations many people around the world might have. But yes, hope is always possible. And I think we're definitely living proof of that, because I have been at my worst where I just didn't care about anything. And I was mentally at my worst. And now I'm not. I found my way back in. It took time. It's going to take time. And it's going to take the right resources. But it is possible for anybody.
Yes. So Shal Singh has been on the live. He has been in and out. So a shout out to Shal Singh for joining us in the conversation. I'm talking about confronting mental health issues with poetry. And the reason for this live is the utmost important that mental health issues kind of weigh down a person so much that they are unable to become their best self.
Yeah.
And over time, they begin to spread that part of them, and then it becomes like a culture, right? I believe the first person who began the culture of keeping or bottling mental health, it began from somebody and then spread over time. It became a culture because somebody began the practice, right? So
Yeah.
the last poem in the collection that I sent to you is "Let Me Be the One," and when are you releasing your first poetry book?
I've been working, like, have had ideas for a while, but it's just putting that whole thing to get, like putting it all to practical use and doing it practically. I've been planning it for God knows how many years now, but it's just that, every time something or the other always comes up, whether it's my podcast or this year I may be making another debut of mine, and that is being at an actual conference for mental health for the first time. So these kind of things just keep coming up. So I have to make my own time to do that, which I've not been doing successfully, unfortunately. So many things to do, but I want to. I certainly want to, and you'll be the first one to know. I will announce it with you. How's that? Anytime when I'm ready to do that, we'll hop back on here and I will
Please,
let you give that announcement. Definitely.
please let me know. Let me know because that would be something I'll be looking forward to hold,
Yeah.
And then relish the images you put into your work because I fell in love from the April analysis I did. I got so hooked that you know not just the message, but the way you layer your thoughts, right? So it's a beauty to find people like you who are born, with the ability to create so much beauty without formal training and even excel beyond those ones who have formal training. And I think that's very important. Please let this be that year you put that book for us to see. I want to see
Yeah.
whatever the title is, you should read it. I want to hold the copy
Yeah.
myself. Let Me Be the One is that poem that counts it all off, right? I think this is the point where we'll be drawing the curtain. So let me be the one, right? Talks about. So I want to understand the poem from the place of okay. So there was this season where, and this is for many persons, and the ones who are listening to the live and who will listen to the live, the recordings of the live after it ends. There was this season where, how do I put it now? So you had mental health issues, right? You got to a point where you found healing, right? And then that was no longer a matter, right? So I think there is a third phase. So the first phase is mental health issue. Second phase would now be healing, right? Then the third phase, what I find, let me be the one, is trying to bring to us. That point, we now become the one for those who are the first stage,
Yes.
right? So how have you been the one for the many in the first stage?
You mean like, how did I cross up, like, how the journey of it? Like, how did I get from one point to the point in that poem?
I understand your journey through mental health,
Yeah.
right? So I said it began with mental health issues, right? At the point where you were grappling with these issues, right? So the second phase would now be the point where you got healed, from that person, that place,
Yeah.
right? So I'm now creating a third place, and that place is that place where you now become the one. In Let Me Be the One, the idea you are preaching is that point of being a shoulder for the next person.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? So
I
mental
wish
health
that
issue.
it stemmed from, I wish somebody had told me that when I was struggling. I thought about, okay, when I was struggling, what would I have wanted to hear from people around me that I didn't get to hear? And that was the basis of that. Okay, well, this is what I would want somebody to say to me if I was still in that stage where I was most vulnerable and really hurting badly. And that's where it kind of stemmed from, that, okay, let me now pay it forward. I was fortunate enough to have experiences that gave me the motivation to move forward. So now let me try to pay that forward to people who are where I was just a few years ago. And yeah, and that's the kind of my thought process behind it was I want to put this out there. I want to put out this thing of being that person who people can look to and say, I can be vulnerable with this person because he understands and he's letting me be and he's letting me show all my emotions raw without, any sort of filter or any sort of facial mask on. So yeah, that's kind of where it stemmed from. And then I try to offer that now to anybody out there who's struggling. If I come in contact with them, I always try that, have that attitude of how can I be there for you? What can I do that will help you? And if not do something physical or practical, then how can I just be there mentally? What do you want? Support? Do you want love? Do you want, just someone to say, you got this, keep going, somebody to motivate you? And that's the thing of showing up how they need you to show up. So.
Yes. So I think this conversation is the headline, right? So we're having a conversation, and whoever would stumble into this conversation would see that it's possible to be healed, and we are in that place where we are, being that person for that one, at that place.
Yeah.
So this has been a very wonderful conversation, right?
And it's important to note one more thing. Like, it's important to note this for everybody, your audience and your listeners, whether they're watching live or will watch this afterwards, is it's still a process. Remember, it's never completely finalized. Even after a healing process, it's not like you'll never be hurt again. There might be something 5 years from now, which again, but the difference being that now you have the tools and resources to cope with it better than you used to be able to. So I think that's crucial to point out that healing journeys, they don't just end with, I'll never be depressed again, I'll never have an anxiety attack again. It is a journey, but you're better equipped now to cope with it. So hopefully it won't be as bad as it once was. So I think that's important for the viewers and listeners to note that. So.
Oh, thank you for that. I was trying to look at for your conclusive comments, but that came well. It's always a process. We never get to that point where we are completely free and healed from mental health issues, right? But like you said, we have the tools and the resources to combat. So far the tools we've looked at is being vulnerable, right, and being vulnerable healthily, right? We've also looked at people being open to love, right? So you've seen both of them. So one that being vulnerable healthily, what it does is that it attracts love your way, right? And then being open. So it's one thing to be vulnerable and still be uptight, So being vulnerable is one step. Another step is being that person who accept love, accept help, accept a shoulder, accept relationship, open to a community, and the love just flows in between. So there is being healthy, being vulnerable healthily, accepting love, and like you say, affirmation, that has a lot, right? And affirmation, like you showed, should not just be restricted to just writing. I am fine, I am better, I am whole, I am healed. It can be art, it can be a painting, that reminds you of your importance, reminds you of your place in the world, right? And at the end of that journey, so wherever we are in the process, right, it's proper to be the one for the next person. And it may not be that we have that big seminar where we have everybody with mental health issues coming around to come participate. It can just be a podcast. It can be an IG live. It can be a handshake. It can be a hug. It can be just into the next person. I see you. I understand your journey, and there is hope. There's a light at the end of the tunnel.
So, wonderfully summed up. Yeah. Wonderfully articulated.
Yeah. So thank you, Neil, for agreeing to jump on the life with me. It's been all
Of course.
shades of beauty,
Yeah.
right? Something I never saw would happen. I've been enlightened, as well as
Uh,
my audience, and I'm grateful that we had this
yeah.
conversation. And I'm hoping that this will not
It's
be our last.
been an no, definitely not. We will definitely do more of this. There can be never enough of these conversations. You know that there can always be conversations on mental health and poetry and writing. It's limitless. There is no limit to that. So we'll definitely be doing this again for sure.
So thank you for jumping in on this. Thank you. Let me
Thanks
to
for having me.
have the part of it. And I did not say this to my audience. We are 7 hours apart, right? So Neil is somewhere around 10 a.m.
Yes. Yeah.
and this is 5:21 p.m. So I'm in Neil's future.
Yes. Exactly. Nice way
So,
of putting it.
so have a great day, Neil.
Oh, you too, man. Thank you for having me too. It's been an honor. So thank you.